a repeat guest that we have on probably at least once a year for the past 10 years, maybe. Edgar. I just did a blank. Edgar Cyrus.
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 Yeah,
thank you very much. I hate it when that happens. Since the older I get, the more it happens. But it's always good to see you, Ed. And you have been involved with the Worcester Symphony Orchestra for many, many years, although it's had a few different names over those years.
Exactly right, yes. It's been 3 different names in the last 10 years, I would say, since we've been coming on this show.
Right.
But, yeah.
And let's first of all, talk a little bit about you as a musician. What is your instrument?
Yeah, I play viola. I played violin for many years, a couple of years with this orchestra when it was the Thayer Symphony, and then moved over to the viola section over 20 years ago now, I think, and I continue to do that when I can.
Why?
Why? Wow, because why the change? I changed because I love the sound of the instrument, and it's very comfortable for me to play with a little bit longer arms. But that's one thing, and the other is because it seems like there's always a need for viola players, so that works out nicely as well. I get called, to come and play.
I've never asked you that before, why you made the switch.
Yeah, no, but I love the experience.
Did you start when you were very young with the violin?
I did. I started in, let's see, I started sort of sequentially with piano as in 1st grade and violin in 3rd grade, because my public school at the time did have a string instruction program in Old Town, Maine. They offered it, just for whoever wanted to take it. So I had a group violin lesson once a week, I think it was, and the teachers would go from building to building around to different schools in town to meet with whoever. And eventually I started taking private lessons as well individually, and it went from there.
Do you still play piano?
I do, not very frequently, yeah. But it's always been a great source of joy for me and relaxation. There's some pieces that I like to think about and occasionally play just to relax with, yes.
Well, I recall interviewing you over the years, and I've always been aware of, you seem to have a passion for music, and you do a lot with the various orchestras. You've done more than just show up for the concerts.
Yes.
You're behind the scenes a lot too.
Yeah, I've always been very much somebody who likes to make sure that things are running smoothly, and once something is up and running, I don't like to see it stop because I know what went into getting it started. And so that explains a lot about my current role with the orchestra. I came in as a musician only, and eventually I got invited to come to some board meetings from time to time with a group of other musicians to talk about our concerns and make sure that those views were represented in the planning for the orchestra. And eventually that turned into being invited to join the board, and ultimately around the time that Francis Wada retired from the orchestra, I got asked to become the board president, and I certainly wanted to do what I could to keep the thing going at that critical moment in its history, and so that's what I did.
Now, were you playing with the orchestra when it was the Thayer Symphony Orchestra?
Yes,
so
I was.
You've been there pretty much from the beginning. Or
Well,
did
no,
the Thayer Orchestra go way back?
They had a pretty long history
Did
before. It's we're up to 45 years, I believe, now.
Okay. I remember that we did a show there when it was still Thayer.
Yes.
And maybe a year or two before it became the second choice. What was
the New England Symphony?
New England Symphony.
Yeah.
But I never could forget that while we were videotaping the concert, and the conductor then, I can't remember his name, but he was so vigorous in his conducting that he's knocked his glasses off his face.
Oh, I don't know.
He was excellent, though.
Yeah, you want to get excited and into the work. So,
he definitely did. And then you mentioned, of course, Francis Wada, who spent many, many years in that position.
He did.
And then was very active with schools also for children, classes for children.
Education and work with young people was clearly very important to Francis as well, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now you're called the Worcester Symphony Orchestra.
Right.
Because we moved to Worcester.
We moved a little bit, yes. We tried to build the audience for the orchestra by focusing on the community with a pretty large population that didn't have a resident orchestra of our type or scale operating there on a continuing basis. Orchestras do come into Worcester, and certainly there's orchestra activity in the city. I don't want to downplay that at all. But our goal was to be more of the city's resident professional orchestra of a fuller scale, full 8, 10 first violins, say, on any given program, and to emphasize the classical repertoire, but also be able to play pops events, outdoor concerts, private events in business settings or for receptions and weddings and that kind of thing. We did play a wedding actually in Mechanics Hall, as it turns out, this past spring. And it was very much a pops program, Frank Sinatra themed event. So a lot of music, in so many ways, the orchestra lends itself to that kind of flexibility.
So it has been a good move for you. And I'm thinking, as we're talking, people in the Fitchburg, Leominster, this area will go to Worcester, but the people of Worcester might not come out here to see a concert.
We do see it working that way, actually, yes. It's just, I think in a lot of New England communities that have been fortunate enough to have their own orchestras and institutions, people get attached to them being in that community, and that's where they go to see them. We want to say, as I say, be based in Worcester and respond to that community's needs, but we have long roots here in Leominster, Fitchburg area as well, and certainly don't want to neglect those groups. So I'll put out the pitch. We are looking now for summer venues to play, and particularly we're going to have a great sort of outdoor 2-hour symphonic program that's ready to go in about a month, because we do have one place we're going to play it for a private audience, but we're looking to take it to other communities. If there are festivals or organizations that want to have a musical entertainment, we're available.
And how should people contact you?
Probably the best way will be through our website, which is just worcestersymphony.org, and you can send an email through that.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. And before we leave the topic of Worcester, the Mechanics Hall is a fabulous auditorium, or whatever I'm supposed to call it.
I think that's a great word for it. The great hall at Mechanics Hall is a wonderful acoustical environment to play in. The musicians just are so thrilled with how the orchestra sounds in that environment. We'll have some examples of that, I guess, at the end of this segment that you can get a brief taste of.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You brought a video for us to see.
I did, yeah.
Okay, we're going to show it as soon as you get through telling us what we need to.
A little bit?
Yeah, give us a little bit of information, and then we'll run that.
Well, okay, so I knew that I was going to be on this segment here with you by myself, but I didn't want to just talk the whole time, so I asked our music director, Rod McDonald, to put together a kind of highlights reel. So he selected several short pieces that represent some of our recent work, mostly in Mechanics Hall. There's a little snippet from a rehearsal we did at the Packagug Music Center. There's a little snippet of him talking about the composer Richard Wagner, just so we get a chance to hear his take on something in the midst of all that. So it's just little short pieces of things, but it does give a kind of cross-section of what we've been up to lately.
And Rod is the current
McDonald
conductor.
Is our current music director
and
for
he
the last
put this together
8 years or so. Yes.
Yes, it's been that long already.
I know, it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
But particularly with the shutdown and all, the whole sense of time seems really distorted to me.
Yeah, and the shows I've been to, the concerts I've been to since Rod has been here, he's done a remarkable job.
He's a very talented musician,
yes,
no doubt about it. And he picks programs that look and sound like they're going to be a little bit too much, perhaps, but in the end, he brings just that right amount of rigor, and enthusiasm as well into the process. So everybody knows he's very clear in his communication. You know just what he wants you to do, and the orchestra has learned, to listen to each other and to him and really pull together in a significant way.
And we will now see a sample of that.
The mind of Wagner often denies him and his followers, as there are monstrosities within. But nobody can escape the vitality and power of his music in the end. Wagner's music formed from overabundance, music from intoxication, and ultimately music as destiny.
Was that Rod playing in the last number
Yes,
there?
we got a little snippet of Rod in his capacity as trumpet soloist as well, yes.
I was so surprised. I thought, first of all, I saw the back of the conductor, and I'm like, wait, well, that's not, oh, there's Rod.
Exactly, he's
Oh,
there.
he did complimented for me. He did a very good job of putting together an interesting piece.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you did that very efficiently.
It wasn't too long ago, a few weeks ago, I interviewed another musical group and a conductor.
Yeah.
And I surprised him when I said, why is a conductor needed? Do you want to take a shot at that?
Okay. Sure. I would say there's certain moments and pieces where the conductor isn't necessarily needed because the musicians can pull it together themselves and hear what's going on rather well. And so part of the art of conducting is, I think, to know when to pull back and not be too much of a presence. But for the most part, I think, particularly in an organization like ours, you need somebody to maintain an artistic vision. I mean, a lot of the work is not done on stage, but ahead of time in selecting the pieces, auditioning players, figuring out who's going to be on which parts and what order things have to go in. Try to make a program that holds itself together in some sort of intellectual or emotional way, but the relationships between the pieces. And then to be able to talk about it with musicians, with the public, and to help everybody to understand and enjoy what's happening. So there's a lot of that. That's not just waving the stick.
I know. I know better than that. Yeah. But all of the musicians are professional musicians. Is that correct?
I would say we treat them as professionals. Not everybody, certainly not everybody makes a living, a full-time living, by no means, through just orchestra work, and certainly not just with our orchestra. We don't do nearly enough to make that feasible. But they all play to professional standards. Many of them have the advanced degrees and long experience, conservatory training, all of that kind of thing.
Well, it's almost like you really have to love it because, and I think I related somewhat to we have so many amateur theater groups in this area. Mm-hmm. And these people, I always have been in awe of how much time they devote, and they're not getting paid for what they do.
Right.
But it's a little bit different from an orchestra because each musician has the part ahead of time and rehearses by themselves their own part. Is that correct?
Yes, that is right.
Up to a certain point.
Yes.
And you all join together with the conductor.
Right.
And how's it different?
So yeah, as a musician, you're responsible for understanding your instrument's role in the composition, interpreting the printed part, which only really has typically your individual part. So if you want to actually know how it fits, you either have to already know the piece, find a copy of the score, find recordings, listen to other performances in order to really scope out quite how it all goes together. But you have to have at least the technical side of knowing what the notes are, what the rhythms mean, and be prepared to play the piece and to vary your interpretation based on what you discover in rehearsal with the other musicians and the conductor, because not everybody's going to have the same initial vision, and so you have to talk about how long is this note? What is the shape of that phrase? Do we come in really soft here, or is this more full out? What's the mood? So all of these things you have to be able to switch interpretations. Let's say as you develop a joint interpretation through that process.
That's a very good answer to why you need a conductor.
They help a lot with that.
He puts all the pieces together.
Exactly.
Right. And as I recall from us talking long ago, it's more than a hobby for you. It's a passion.
That's true.
But it's something you never wanted to give up. And you were are you still working full-time in a regular job?
Yes, I am still the Director of Finance for Merrimack Repertory Theater in Lowell, and that's very much a full-time job as well. It's come through the pandemic, and we just started rehearsal today. It was very thrilling. We're starting a rehearsal of a concert production performance of music made famous by Ella Fitzgerald. So that'll be on stage at MRT very soon.
But you don't always do musical anything.
No, we do all kinds of things.
Shows.
Sure.
So you kind of see both sides of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love going to a symphony. However, I rarely listen to classical music on the radio or anything. I love being able to watch the orchestra.
Right.
And who's going to stand out next.
Right,
and
right.
It's theatrical also.
It is. It takes a little, I don't know, familiarity maybe to be able to follow what's happening in that sense. You know, a lot of the really good televised concert performances have benefited from having advanced work by a director and a camera crew that knows. They've worked with the score, and they know that at this point the oboe is going to be featured, or you're going to need to see the timpanist because they're going to play a sudden important role. It's not as easy as just yourself going into the concert without previous knowledge to be able to anticipate all those things, but it's fun to watch anyway.
Oh yeah, because I've never gone that deep. And I have to admit, I've never been to an opera, and I'm not sure I would be able to follow the action or know
There's a
what's
whole
going
other
on.
multiple layers of activity there, yeah.
Definitely. And then I know over the years with the orchestra here and in Worcester, sometimes there are soloists who perform.
Yes.
Talk about some
Thank
that
you,
have
yeah.
stood out over the years.
Well, yeah, the clip that we just played, the piano soloist, was Father Sean Duggan. He's played with us once before. I think it was also Bach at that time, but he's kind of a specialist in the music of Bach. But he did a really nice performance on our March concert, which is our most recent one that we just did at Mechanics Hall. That performance actually is available on our YouTube channel. So again, if you go to the WorcesterSymphony.org and just click on the social media links, you can find that video clip and see the entire concerto performance free. Really worth a listen. So he was exciting. I should mention we've taken some steps to, I think, improving our operations as an organization in that we finally were able to provide housing for the soloist and the conductor during the rehearsal process and up to the concert this time. So we had a new partner in the Hilton Garden Inn in Worcester helped us out with that. So we're grateful. We want to keep doing that. Makes it easier for soloists to come to us. We're looking forward to actually in our next concert at Mechanics Hall should be in September of this year. Well, it will be. It's on September 23rd is the date that we're working with. And we're going to be featuring a young violin soloist who just won the Elmar Oliveira competition. She also, I guess, won the Indianapolis violin competition, which is a very famous competition for concert violinists. So her name is Serena Huang, and we're working on the contract to get that all set, but we are in agreement on the terms. She's going to come and play the Brahms violin concerto with us in September.
Well, and if people go and look up and listen to what the past performance,
yeah,
they may really give sincere consideration to going to Worcester to see the September performance.
Certainly hope people will, yes.
Now, as president of the board, there's an awful lot of things you have to do, isn't there?
Well, yes, there's a lot of organizing and communications work, fundraising work, absolutely. PR such as this, just to let people know we are there. We are interested in your involvement and participation. We're always looking for new volunteers. Everything from, well, we'll take whatever skills you want to bring to the organization, basically. Yeah, it has a lot to do with just getting the word out. But there's also hospitality tasks. Like I say, if we have a guest artist in town, somebody should be available to help them get oriented and find out where to go to eat and how to get to the hall and all those kinds of things. We have a great volunteer graphic designer, but we also can use help sharing things like posters and social media work. We can use a lot of help with. Yeah, grant writing.
Oh, that's a job in itself. Yeah.
It is a job in itself. We've taken a lot of effort in that. We've done a lot of research in the last several months to identify appropriate places to apply, because not every foundation will support every cause, and nor should they. But yeah, we can always use help with things like that. So board membership, you know, covers the overview.
Well, people just don't realize that it is a business per se.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that you just couldn't have it without that help.
Exactly.
And in our remaining 2 minutes, what do you want people to know about the Worcester Symphony Orchestra that I haven't given you a chance to say, or I haven't asked you the right questions?
All right. Well, I share a couple of things, a couple of developments. Yes, so we're continuing to emphasize, as I said, Worcester as a home base, but we're working on some partnerships we can't quite say what's going on there, but we're very excited about a relationship that we're developing with the Worcester Red Sox. They've been in talks with us back and forth, you know, possibly getting some way to play in Polar Park. That'll be something we're very excited about. As I mentioned earlier, we're looking for community venues and summer festivals and things like that that we might be able to play at. We also have a special fundraising initiative for this coming season. A lot of orchestras do this, but this is new for us. We now have the opportunity for people to sponsor a seat in the orchestra. So, and we're going to start with the sort of principal chairs of each of the principal players of each of the different instruments to have their seats sponsored for a year. And basically what that means for a one-time donation, which we're happy to renew year after year if people are happy with it, you get your name attached to that seat. So it's the so-and-so concertmaster of Worcester Symphony Orchestra in all of our program materials and concert listings and that kind of thing. We hope that people find that appealing. It's a very concrete and specific way that people can get involved. Yes, we hope to grow that. If we can get, you know, just 10 or a dozen people to do that the first time out, we'll have paid for the first concert. And so
wonderful.
that's the plan.
Wonderful. And there's a lot of people that just love symphonic music and would be happy to, I'm sure, to help support it in that way. It doesn't sound like you ever have a shortage of musicians, though.
No, I mean, we have an excellent and long-time relationship with our contractor, who's our personnel manager, Bruce Hopkins.
Oh, and right, I recognize that name.
he works very hard to keep bringing us new musicians. We had a successful audition this past fall. I'm sure we'll do something like it again. We brought in some new fabulous players, including a new concertmaster who's played now with us a couple of times, and I think that's going to work out really nicely. But yeah, when we put together a new program, we always have openings in this spot or that spot, and we need a couple more violins or an extra bass or whatever. Bruce is the one who makes the phone calls keeps going until he finds the right people.
Well, it sounds like you're all headed in the right direction, and I'm glad things are going so well for you. And I appreciate you spending the time to come and talk to us about it.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me back.
My pleasure. And we'll see you again before the year's over, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We want to plug that September concert, so let me know.
We'll
Get
pick a
on
date.
the schedule.